Hey, Quinn here. So we're gonna try and do our first like actual video, I guess. I did a few like minute-long clips that I strung together, just thinking out loud. But there's been some parts of the manifestation community that have been honestly getting on my nerves, and it's, I'm not trying to start off on a negative point or, negative is perception based, of course, but there's a lot of things in the current society we live in and a lot of labels that people that's their starting point. And so when we get to our end point, there's a lot of invalidation of the process and like how messy it can be when your story has been a certain way and everyone has been confirming that. Like that is actually rooted in your nervous system. Okay, so when we're told, oh, it's just lack mentality, and oh, it's just this, or oh, it's just that, oh, you need to relax, like it's really not that easy. Okay, it is, and you can change your story to that, but you have to work through when it empties out. Like, okay, so when we all, like, we've experienced when we start putting these affirmations in, and when we have, we start doing our sleep, our sleep meditations and our frequencies, like it's making room. So to make room, you have to empty it out, which means you have to consciously sift what is stirred up, which is your old story. And so that's where the awareness comes in. Okay, so the faster you sift the old story is how many moments you're kind of in check. But if you have a lot of stories because of the layers of not only the nervous system I'm about to cover, because I just found polyvagal theory, and oh my god, like it's everything we're talking about in the manifestation community, but it's why it won't work for some of us. And I think it's so important to realize that your manifestations like aren't working because of lack, it's not really lack mentality. You're stuck in what is your sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so when you break it down in this polyvagal theory, like oh my god, like it's amazing. Like I have been beating myself up because I could not figure out like why my stories were decent, like I could see, I was still getting the pieces popping up and stuff, but I was manifesting, like it was obvious I was in alignment. The numbers, I have a thing with neon green cars, like I'm seeing like dozens of them a day, I'm seeing all my different signs. Like I talk about a blue butterfly, it pops up. You talk about this, it pops up. So I'm like, I'm seeing my signs of alignment. So why, other than, just stories, is my shit not coming in regularly? So it didn't make sense to me. And I mean, I think the extent of your trauma, like you have some extra layers. Like if you have that compound PTSD, honey, like don't beat yourself up. When it takes a few extra revolutions, you got compounded. Okay, like so it looks like one moment in this emotion, it's like a zip file. Okay, it needs to open up. So I just watched this beautiful video that a woman named Deb Dana did, and I'm gonna link it below. And but it talks about the polyvagal theory, and I've just started kind of digging into this. So this is like a new model for me to look at through my lens and how things like manifest into reality. So she starts with the autonomic nervous system. And so that's kind of like how we just initially respond to each other. That's almost like, to me, it's the telepathic sensory that we have going on, but we don't call it that. So we're not, but it's happening anyway. And I realized, I came onto this myself. I'll share a little bit here. I'm trying to avoid most of my story except the pieces that kind of fill in how I see this way, because I feel like that is a big linking part. It's what takes this information from here to here. Like the link is me. Okay, so I am the relating factor.
Is Rebel yellow?
I don't know, baby. Okay, but can you give mommy a minute, please? I love you. So I believe that's where like our sensation of what could be like, because I absolutely know telepathy is real. I have done it accurately with many people now, and at first I thought it was just in my head. So I believe that is linked to the autonomic nervous system. However, most people are numbed to some extent, or they're just too busy in their external worlds to really be in touch with that part of their body. So I believe what I would have called like self-telepathy, I was actually getting in touch with this part of my body. I was communicating with my nervous system. That's beautiful, honey. Can you give me a minute, please? I love you so much. Okay, mommy's talking about some stuff. We'll color together soon. That's gorgeous.
Rebel is yellow.
Good job. Yours is yellow, isn't he? Okay, so when we're in the state of alignment that all these mentors are talking about, is the ventrovagal. Ollie, quit. Yeah, my life. Dogs, babies, there's a reason I don't have videos up yet. I've been just circumstances sometimes matter when you gotta sift through it. It's strategizing. So like in the end, no, they don't matter. You gotta still strategize. Or just do it anyway and just let it be, which is where we're at, because anyway. So the state that you actually can manifest from, and when you see these people getting results, they're in a ventral vagal state. Okay, they are comfortable interacting with others, and they are comfortable interacting with themselves. Okay, so when you see these kind of delayed manifestations versus instant manifestations, or like 3 days versus 3 months of this trickle down of this subconscious process, we are actually trickling through the polyvagal system here. And so when you've had high trauma and you come into the world of manifestation, you know, aha, it's gonna work, I have an out, everything is possible. And then you're affirming, you're doing your shit, and you're just chugging along, it doesn't work, you know, you fry out. So what happens there, you're actually trying, keyword, to manifest from the sympathetic nervous system, which will, due to the state of your actual nervous system, sorry, I'm just frustrated with how this is portrayed. Due to the state of your nervous system, it will counter manifest, because it is just words. You are intellectualizing it because you are too scared. Your body is triggering when you try and go into vagal alignment, basically. You're trying to like get your nervous system back into alignment, but you're triggering right in this heart space here, okay? This is also kind of where you're moving from, you know, the lower chakra centers to the upper. You know, we try to bypass this when we've been traumatized, and that's because of the nervous system response. The heart center is our connecting area to others. So we get up, kind of, I would say that maybe the sympathetic nervous system is more related to the lower 3 chakras, like in the dorsal ventral, which is the next when your fight or flight fails, basically. Your separation mode is so separated you give up on trying to break through into ventral. You give up and you go back into dorsal. And so that's what people think is letting go. So we're getting a lot of people who are confusing surrender from a state of security, you know, that ventral vagal, to giving up from a state of dorsal ventral. And that's like kind of the dissociation, the empty cup. You're in depression, like you're in that deep rest because your body's trying to figure out like where this energy needs to go. Like it's rebuilding, you're refueling, but you're empty. Like your vibration is basically nothing if you've given up. And so that's why you can't polarize your desires, because you're at that negative. And like, that's an experience you're having. It doesn't mean it's bad. Okay, so that's where you have to let go of the judgment. But you can see in the video, I link about the actual polyvagal theory, how to kind of work our way up. And she actually gives some rather shamanic techniques. It's beautiful. And how to study in similar ways that I began studying what I called telepathy. You know, it was actually just a really underlying neural response to other people and how I had been treated and perceived. Okay, so we can work our way up, and another way you can kind of work your way up through this is with Abraham Hicks' emotional, like, well-being vortex, like the hopelessness and the powerlessness she talks about, that Esther talks about with Abraham, is that dorsal ventral state, and how we can't manifest from there, but most of the population is there. And that's, you know, we see our addiction occurring in the sympathetic nervous system because we're trying to comfort it. You know, and so we get this kind of like this back pressure of energy when we're dealing with it in that sympathetic nervous system, because nothing's gonna work. Like you can't create a fix from that state of being, okay? So that is what is actually dictating your state of being. Like some people, yeah, a few deep breaths might get you there. Other people, for me, after like the extent that, okay, it's biochemistry. Like I can be as conscious as I want to be about it, but my biochemistry is still at its own point than my consciousness. Like, yeah, consciousness is its oneness, but my specific consciousness is driving this meat suit. And so I have to learn to befriend this meat suit to be able to get into alignment, because if I can't trust my own consciousness, my body's going to lock up every time and it's going to throw me back into this sympathetic nervous system, because my brain, the chemicals that I had been producing prior to my awakening and my spiritual, you know, what catalyzed this, because I was in pain. I was bouncing between dorsal and ventricle. So essentially I had been ungrounded and dissociated for 28 years. Okay, I believe it's safe to say that I had never ever had an experience in ventral vagal because of my parents' inability to do it properly and because of my autism. And so due to the misunderstanding, their expectations of me and like being a neurotypical and my expectations of like just getting love for being what I was, incompatible. Like incompatible. And that's no one's fault, because in their reality over here in this bubble, my mommy's bubble, my, you know, whatever, she thought she was doing what was best for me, and over here I'm like, Ma, you're killing me. Ma, it's not working. And then, you know, it gets all my friends in there because that's what I'm expecting, and then I attract, you know, my ex-husband, and he falls into the, so it's just, eventually you just see it's just this like TikTok ping pong like of negative patterns. People would start using the same words in different bodies, and I'm like, I don't think I'm that crazy. Okay, like something's going on here. I realized it was almost like an entity switching between people, but I was the only, you know, I was the only singular, right? Like it was still happening all around me. Like everywhere I went, it became this massive, like weird, and I mean weird. Okay, weird stuff, like spiritual stuff that I could not explain, you know, and so it's, you know, it's layered depending on how you see and how you perceive what's happening to you, you know. But overall, regardless of the story that was assigned to you before you had a chance to create a story, you're playing with your nervous system, and that has layers. So, oh, this is cool. Let's see. I just saw something else. Where'd that page go? Hold up. Okay, so if we're looking at, I also was looking at the Law of One stuff recently, and I just realized that the sympathetic model lines up with Keppels' model. So if you look at the autonomic nervous system versus focus one, you know, that Keppel talks about like an astral projection and such, that's the physical, like that's the story. And then like, okay, so it's not exact, but it's a 4-part, okay, it's kind of reversed. Okay, it's kind of reversed how this would work. So focus 2 is the dream world, right? So if you're in ventral vagal, which would be the second step, so focus 2 and ventral vagal would line up there, right? That's you can posit, you know, you can positively manifest from that dream, and it's a comfortable area. It says it's the objective subjective world, like a dream world that is just you, which I guess would be pretty comfortable, right? So that could be, where this is on the fly. I don't know how this, I'll have to think about this more. But focus 3 is the astral planes, which would line up with sympathetic nervous system. So, you know, I guess because there are positive and negative entities in the astral plane, like, and you know, if you're not familiar with, that could create some kind of response. I wonder how that feels on the nervous system. So, and then focus 4, you know, would line up with dorsal ventral. So I think in how I used, and it's the divine realm, pure consciousness, when I was in dorsal ventral, that was what I used to get out. So, interesting. I think everything has some kind of parallel. This might be too much of a stretch, but I saw a 4-part, you know, 4-part thing, and I attracted both these theories and both these models within 2 days of each other. So, you know, maybe there's something here. Maybe not, but you know, it is all linked. So considering its perception, like when we do break down these different like psychological models and bodily models into the Law of One, there is absolutely always a crossover, and that's kind of been where my focus of study has been. So it looks really abstract, but eventually I'll be able to produce some type of equation is what I'm working on, is so that it can be a little more coherent to others, because to me it's, you know, boys, get down. It's obvious when this stuff lines up. This is not super clear, but you know, that's kind of the theme. So that I move with. I kind of just take 2 things that are seemingly unrelated, and we just see if there's kind of a synonymous theme, or what I call a dynamic, that moves between them. And there could be, but you know, it's not resonating like I thought it might. But you know, the numerical patterns lined up, and then, you know, around the time that it came into my physical reality. So, you know, it's worth a shot. And sometimes it is just a bunch of garbage, and you know, but sometimes you really hit gold. And so these interdisciplinary like relationships, like I started talking about relationships in my little clip on, but like just how things relate to each other, not how we interact with each other exactly. So, but it's kind of using yourself as that like little plus mark is what I talk about, like as being an observer of observers. You know, I know how I view it, so like what's happening in that plus mark when I add someone else, you know, what's their view plus my view? What polarity is like actually happening that like pings us? You know, whose nervous system is where, like how are they reading it? So go back to the Polyvagal with Deb Dana, the video I was watching this afternoon. She says regarding the autonomic nervous system, how did that hit your nervous system? Okay, so, you know, a lot of the discovery I came to is comparing, I realized that me and another individual had the same exact response, like in our bodies. However, what we did was the opposite. Like what triggered him to do one thing triggered me to do the other, but I recognized we both had the same fear response. But based on the stories we had told each other, we responded in opposite manners. And now, mind you, that person was my twin flame. So this has a very interdisciplinary application if we're willing to just kind of let our mind loosen some. So I'm gonna stop because this is I'm still building some confidence with sharing like how abstract this moves for me, and I know it can move a little bit quicker than I prefer when I'm moving through. Apparently that fight or flight mode is what's happening when it starts kind of rushing. Like I get scared, and so I see both stories. And so that's when you're really, you consciously become the filter of light. Okay, so if you choose like to go in a positive direction, which I think we all want to because it feels better, right? Because we're programmed to like love and positivity and kind of that warm feeling. When we're in sympathetic, that doesn't feel right. Okay, it feels abnormal. So our body will try to come up with any reason it can to not do that because our ego thinks it is protecting us. And so what really needs to happen is you need to be like, yo, thank you, body. Thank you. I see your efforts, but we're safe now. Okay. And so you go into that gratitude, you breathe, you sit with your body. But mind you, like I'll get flashy lights on my eyelids for like a week or two, and I will literally be counting breaths all day and do Reiki for an hour or two when I wake up, an hour or two before bed, and just really pull it together and watch those thoughts. And you literally do have to sit. And the center of my nose is my point, and here, and then here. And so I take my mind, I give myself an attention point, and then I bring myself into my body here so I can monitor my nervous system, and you can kind of talk to it consciously. And it shows up as colors or emotions, and sometimes you'll get a little story to play, but you have to remember that you're sifting. So in that space, oh look, Anna's gonna help. Anna needs her hair brushed. Will you brush Anna's hair? Oh my goodness. Maybe Anna's in fight or flight. Yeah, we're gonna do this. So, you know, when it looks messy like that, you're in fight or flight. Like that is your signal that your job is not to be affirming and manifesting right now, but your job is to be with your body, because your body needs you more than your destination. Your destination will still be here. And so you need to trust the process. This is the moment you trust the process. Okay, and this is where you slow down and you drop in that feminine, because the bodies are feminine energy. Okay, our mind is always active. That's that masculine. Okay, so when we're balancing our masculine and feminine, we're really kind of just moving between, you know, what's this part of us need? What's this part of us need? What's this part of us telling us, you know, is going to happen, so we can prepare. Like we always have that. We know what's coming. Truly, we really do.
Mommy,
it's just you want to listen.
Could you put this?
Because your body might not like it. So that's where consciousness, we decide. You know, are you going to walk your body through it? Or are you going to let your body decide for you? Yeah, perfect.
No.
No, you don't. Okay.
No, I want it on the
Okay, I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying. There. Her hair stick. Done.
I love my sister Elsa with all my heart.
On that note, have a good day, everyone.